How on earth is that not a penalty? Why has he not sent the bloke off for the 2 yellow cards? What is it with the refereeing? Do beg your pardon? Last match's notes. 1-0 Blues. Smashing. My name's Simon Brew, and this is Thoughts on the Blues. Hello, and a very warm welcome to Thoughts on the Blues. The morning after Preston North End 0, Birmingham City 1. Let's start, unusually, with quotes from the opposition manager before I get into the game. Preston's Paul Heckingbottom, let me see. Talking to the BBC afterwards, he said, the officials shouldn't be allowed to have that much of an influence on a game of football. It's scandalous, really. Anyone who watches us knows we are refereed to a different standard to everyone else. Let's just take a second to think about that. Anyone who watches us knows we are refereed to a different standard to everyone else. Then, in his interview with the local press, once I'd clicked off all the windows that say you've got to do this, you've got to do that, blah, 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 he said that if the decisions had gone their way, they would have won that game 3-0. Paul, I understand your feeling of injustice. I will get into it. To win a game of football 3-0, you generally have to have 3 good shots. And the bulk of the complaint, well, it's not just the bulk of the complaint, but again, I'll get into it, is a penalty that every Blues fan I know should have been given. We had one on Saturday. Paul, we know how you feel. Saying that you are basically the single team who's picked out for crappy refereeing, you're refereed to a different standard, and then saying you were going to win that game 3-0, I don't buy it. I have, however, a degree of sympathy, which I'll get into. Pre-match, let me start there. Pre this game, what was missed a little bit is the club. For those of us who go to St Andrews regularly, there is that ongoing fear that if you park your car, there's a sporting chance it's going to come back. You're going to find it not intact. So, for those of you who missed it, there is a bit on the club's official website about starting with the Millwall game at home. No idea why they picked that one. They're going to be doing patrols around St Andrews and just trying to do something about it. I want to acknowledge it because thank God for that. I mean, parking to go to a Blues match is tricky enough already. The risk of having your car stripped down, don't need that. Setting up, going into this game away at Preston, I mean, where were our confidence levels, really? As has been widely reported, as I talked about on the last video I did, we weren't in good shape. One win in 8, no matter how good some of the performances were, and that general overarching thing, league tables don't lie. 17th place, looking down at the relegation places. Now, this morning, 3 points off the playoffs, off the back of one win. And it was a win that, well, against a bunch of problems, really. I mean, every Blues fan I know was reeling from the tragic news that Jack Robinson was now going to be out for 4 games off the back of his latest sending off. And, I mean, we were struggling to know how on earth we were going to cope. We're also struggling to work out, is this the bit where Phil Neumann is actually going to start a game, or will we find Bagpuss or something to put in as centre-back, such has seemingly been the reluctance to pair Neumann and Clara at the back. Thank God when the team sheet came out, that's what we got. We also, on the team sheet, had Iwata playing at right back again, and Iwata is the new Taylor Gardner-Hickman for me, an upgraded Gardner-Hickman. I still think it was a mistake to get rid of him, being as he could play anywhere we wanted. He'd have played centre-back before Neumann at one point. But then Iwata has to move positions pretty much straight away when we get typically an injury in the warm-up for the second time this season. This time it's Patrick Roberts. Asai Samuel comes in to be, for let's just say, a taxing game. Doyle then is picked, preferred to Leonard. A little bit harsh on Leonard, a little bit, but I wasn't sad to see Doyle in the starting line. And then Lewis Kumas in for Damari Gray. Though, I mean, Gray, I know there's a bit of to and fro on him. I just think has been a sublime signing, one of the few that's really worked. And you can tell this, I think, by the fact that as soon as he gets the ball, whoever we're playing seems to put 9 players on him just to try and get the ball off him. I don't think last night would turn out to be Gray's finest hour, but boy, have we won more than we lost with that particular signing. So, I mean, the setup was altered fairly late in the day, but that's the gig. That's sort of what we have to put up with. Iwata slots in, no problem at all. We get the traditional booking for next to Soddle fairly early on. In this case, it was Asai Samuel. And what I was interested in was, are we going to see a different Birmingham City? Because I was talking in the last video I did, we seem to have 2 ways of doing it, that we can set up to play a really defensive game and be very, very tight and not have a shot on target, or we sort of go all out attack, and we not quite all out attack, is it? But we're a lot more on the front foot, leave ourselves vulnerable at the back. And the defence has been a bit of a bomb scare this season. It wasn't last, but I mean, you only have to look at, like, we're shipping for an assortment of reasons: 3 goals against Hull, 3 goals against Coventry, 2 goals against Sheffield Wednesday. You can't keep shipping that number of goals and expect to walk away with points. And what do you know? We've not walked away with any points. And so, I mean, it was. I don't know if you remember an interview that Wayne Rooney, back when he was a football player, before he became an acclaimed football manager, he gave an interview about sometimes the most difficult games are away at Stoke or Birmingham on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. And it was when he was in his Manchester United days. In terms of championship games on a winter's night, I mean, this had it almost pretty much down to the cliche, really, that it was. I mean, if you go back to the whole game, the whole game was a really entertaining game that we lost. This was a really tense and a bit of a grim game that we won, and I know which one I prefer. And I don't know why this Rooney thing just clicked into my head, but like 10, 20 minutes in, I just thought this is just a battle. The standouts. One of the things, I mean, I'm a bit of a Keshi Anderson fan club at the moment, and one of the I don't know how many people, I don't know if it's noticed particularly, but it was really important for us to be solid at the back. We concede from free kicks. We never score from free kicks. And I mean, Preston knew this as well. They put a team selection in there that put massive striker up front. I mean, God bless him. He could still be shooting now and he wouldn't hit the target. That notwithstanding, he was going to be troubled. It was very, very good that we had 2 big physical centre-backs in there. But how many times did Anderson get in the box and just clear the ball? How many times was he doing that kind of defensive work? Contrast that with Lewis Kumas. It's just like, if you look in the first half hour of the game, how often was Anderson in it? How much was Kumas in it? Now, Kumas, I've talked about a little bit. He's a skillful player. He's a developing player. However, I mean, on a Tuesday night at Preston in a physical game, I just think at the moment he's a bit too slight. I don't think he's I'm loath to say luxury. I just don't think we can accommodate him particularly well on a miserable, dark, midweek game away at Preston, where, I mean, they're on him. Now, Kumas had a couple of good touches, and very early on, he put in a smashing low cross across the box. No one was on it. But the same problem came in, that there was just the end product just wasn't there. And you contrast with Keshi Anderson, who continues to look to go forward. He does his defensive work, goes over a little bit too easily for me at the moment. He's not getting free kicks because he has the look of a man who's trying to get free kicks. I mean, he didn't get a penalty at Hull. And I wonder if the reason that wasn't given in the end is he'd manoeuvred himself into a position where he could get a penalty. Still should have been a penalty. But I just think in the non-VAR championship, which Paul Heckingbottom is not happy about, I do wonder if that slightly counts against him. I thought as well, I mean, Preston at first, I mean, they picked this aggressive team, and you go on some of the Preston message boards and they weren't particularly happy with the team that they'd picked. That notwithstanding, I mean, they were pressing us, they were pushing us, and particularly they seemed to target us playing out from the back. Now, I'm of a generation of people for whom playing out at the back is still like stressful to watch. If you look at youth and grassroots football now, all the kids are watching Manchester City, trying to play out from the back. The ball just keeps getting banged in the goal. I thought we did it well, but I thought Preston targeted particularly well Asai Samuel. And they were just closing him down and stopping him down. And credit to Asai Samuel here, that I think there was only one instance they managed to get the ball off him in the end. And he dealt with it well, and the defence dealt with it well. What it meant, though, is I just felt we were pinned for a long time, especially in the second half. I mean, I may as well have just set up a tent in our half. They were in it for so much of it. But, they'd done a bit of homework on us. But credit to Chris Davies here. This is, and I've seen a complaint go out about Birmingham. They've spent, what's the number this time? 20, 30, 70 million, whoever you're reading at the time, and they have to win this way and blah, blah, blah. I think it's worth noting going into this game that this was a Birmingham City team that was a little bit down on confidence, certainly a bit down on luck, a bit down on form. And we had to show there was that other way to play. We had to show that we could go and grind, I wouldn't say boring, but let's just say intense game out, one that's not great on the eye, but is kind of another traditional championship midweek game of football. We had to show that side to us. We hadn't been tested on this that much last season. The only one I can really think of is the second half away at Wrexham, where Wrexham kept coming at us and we had to dig in for 20, 25 minutes to come away with a result there. And it was, to see that mentality and to see us, 20 minutes in, 20, 30 minutes in, I'm starting to think, actually, we can defend again here. Okay, this is starting to work. And Phil Neumann next to Clara, why has it taken us? What are we? That was our 11th game of the season. If we'd have played those two side by side for 11 matches, how many more points do you think we'd have? You know, we'd have finished more games with players on the pitch, but it remains to me a mystery why he's not been in the team. I hear all the left foot, right foot stuff, left-sided centre-back line. I made a point last time I was talking. It's just like a cash-in mistake or a Robinson mistake. When they have a wobble, you know about it. When Neumann has a wobble, you're just like, oh, you might have dropped to a 7 out of 10. And I thought Neumann and Clara were immense last night. I thought Cochrane had probably his best defensive game of the season as well. Although there was an argument like if our strategy was stopping the crosses, that didn't necessarily work, but he was closing them down and the fullbacks were having to work really, really, really hard and did work hard. And then what do you know? 33 minutes, we get this free kick. Anderson wins the free kick, and he could have had a couple before then. This was the one that the referee gave. Beautiful delivery. A beautiful delivery. 33 minutes. Wouldn't you know it? Who scores the goal? Phil Neumann scores the goal. It's almost like Clara looked around just to check. Are you going to give that? Shades of offside, shades of handball. Let's have the chat. The offside. I did watch one of the umpteen television angles of it. Don't buy it was offside. I don't buy it was offside. Preston fans, if you're watching this video isn't for you, you might have a case on the hand. It looked to me like he headed it down onto his hand. It went in. I will also say, Preston defence, they couldn't mark him for shit, could they? The amount of space he got there. If Clara had headed the ball, he was well offside. Neumann just in line. How he got that much room in the box, no idea. Headed it in, bang, 1-0. Right, Blues fans instantly go into a song of how not very good you must be. We scored from a set piece. And we're just like, yeah. Then, wouldn't you know it, I never trust Blues, Kumas nearly scores. So Stansfield back in this centre-forward role, which I'm liking Stansfield in the centre-forward role. He's a really hard-working footballer. And when you see not the television version and you turn and watch in person at the crowd, sat in the stand, you see how much running he's doing, how many times he's trying to break the lines. He's a hugely industrious footballer. And up front, he's an annoyance for defenders as well. And, had a couple of good shots again. I think he looked trouble. In this case, he closes Everson down in goal, tees up Lewis Kumas, can't really fault Lewis Kumas, bang the shot in, got it on target, low, hard, defender had got back and defended it, fair enough. But from deep-footed defending, we should have been 2-0 up by 35 minutes. The fact that we were 1-0 up and had scored from a free kick, wonderful. I mean, the stat went up in the end that by the time we got to like 40, 41 minutes, our possession was 43%, and Preston had the bulk of the possession over the match. And this is an inverse of what we've been used to in recent times as Blues fans. We're used to having the lion's share of the possession, the majority of the possession, and losing or drawing. Here, I mean, it went back a little bit. You're almost going a little bit back to Gary Monk, where possession wasn't the key thing. It was grinding out the result to that era. It was a third way for Blues to play, and I was glad to see it, really. I mean, one of the things, I watched this one on the telly, and one of the entertaining things was occasionally cutting to Paul Heckingbottom on the sideline, swearing at his iPad as if he'd just lost a couple of extra lives on Candy Crush or something. I have sympathy for the decisions going against him, but they only extend so far, because this is a Blues shirt, not a Preston shirt, and I'm bloody glad we won. But EFL refereeing, I might come back to that a little bit. The thing is, we got to half-time, and my thoughts at that stage was, I mean, we just looked up for it. We looked like a bunch of players who come in for the battle and were happy to have the battle. We also, I mean, one of the things I was thinking of as well over the last few days is players on the bench who are on the bench and you just think, you're not going to use them. And again, if you go back to last season, anyone on the bench had a chance of getting on the field. This time, when I see, Fushimoto, I see Samsted on the bench, Isashi's on the bench last night. I'm just like, well, they're not going to get on, are they? I was pleased to see that Samsted did, because I think he's always, apart from one bad game against Port Vale, bluntly, he didn't get in the team at League One. He ain't going to get in the team at the Championship, but he'll put in a shift. So this was a bench that I was glad he started to use a bit more of the breadth. I'll come back to Samsted and Cashin a little bit later for one particular reason as well. But half-time, 1-0 up, and I mean, a Blues team that had battled to get that far. Also, it's worth noting that Preston, all that they'd had the possession, they just didn't look like they were going to score. And they had this clear strategy of get the crosses in to the big centre halves, almost as if they must have been gutted Jack Robinson got sent off on Saturday. I don't think they were expecting to play Neumann and Clara, but they found themselves up against Neumann and Clara, and our centre backs just had their number. I mean, I wrote it down now. Not only did we score off a set piece, it's just like we're up for the battle, and I mean, our centre-backs are fully in for this. Also, I think our game management was decent as well. If you contrast that with how Hull played against us on Saturday, Hull let us keep coming at us, even when we were down to 10 men, whereas we were controlling in a frustrating, not always interesting way to watch. But if you look at what Preston were, in the end, left to do, it was putting in bad cross after bad cross after bad cross. I genuinely thought at one point the Preston team were fundraising for children in need and having a who could put the shittest cross in competition. I've got to tell you, there were a lot of contenders. These balls were just coming in. It's just like, oh, all right. Okay, if they'd have if one of their players had had the wherewithal of putting in a hard low cross every now and then, who knows what might have happened? But they didn't. They just kept putting in these. I mean, it's like cricketers bowling underarm. They were slow. They were rough. Our keeper's 9'6". No, keep him up there. That's absolutely fine. Our keeper is worth a brief conversation as well, because a couple of good saves, but for the second game running, he had what's in danger of being called the Beadle moment, which is a ball is coming and Allsop, and I'm not suggesting Allsop takes Beadle's place in the team, but one of the things Allsop was very good at was reading a defensive position a mile off and would be there. Beadle, I think, reads those positions, and he's a young goalkeeper and he's a good goalkeeper. I think he reads those positions about a second later than Allsop and makes his decision a second later as well. Against Hull, it got him a booking. Here, it nearly cost us a goal as well. That he was mugged basically by the touchline. He was close to a throw-in than he was to a goal kick, the goal kick line. and he was mugged. Who's on the bench? Who's on the bench? Who's on the line to stop it? The hero of the day, Phil Neumann. God bless you, Phil. Where have you been? Where have you been? Goal like, I mean, let's just do a side-by-side comparison. You know, Robinson on Saturday, own goal, sending off. Neumann, goal line clearance and goal. I think I know which one I prefer and have more confidence of when I see them in the team. The second half, I mean, it got a bit full on, didn't it? And it was interesting how Davis started to approach this as Preston grew more and more into it and pushed more and more and more and more to try and get an equaliser. There was an interesting substitution, I thought, on the 54th minute where Asai Samuel comes off, Mark Leonard comes on. Again, I think Leonard was unlucky not to be on the park at the start, but I understand the decision. I thought Doyle in the first half had a really good game. Leonard is improving on the quiet for me, that he was the player signed that I remember when it was announced we were linked with him. There was a lot of excitement about the potential of him, about how good a player he was and how good a player he could be. It took a while to sign him, didn't it? It was rumoured, and then it didn't. We had a few more signings before he came through the door. And I think he was the only one of the new signings last season who didn't score a goal. You know, he hit the post and stuff. I think even Samstead got a goal. But he didn't also have that consistent run in the team. Now, he's played the last 2 games. He's on the bench here. I think Leonard offers us something. I think his passing is tidy. I don't think he's quite as solid defensively, but I don't think he's far off, and I think he's improving a lot. And quietly, while we've all been wondering why is that player not being picked, where's he, what's that dude, Leonard is just slowly stepping up, I think. And I wonder if he's going to be a slightly more prominent player for us this season than we'd initially thought. I mean, Lyndon Dykes certainly is. If you'd have told me at the start of the season that our second highest goal scorer would be Lyndon Dykes, and we'd be really happy when he came off the bench, no disrespect to him, I wouldn't have believed you, primarily because I didn't think he'd be at the club. But he's turning into a bit of a weapon, really. So Leonard comes on. Preston keep coming at us. They keep putting... I mean, to say we were inviting pressure is equivalent to say... I mean, it's an understatement on the lines of saying Jack Robinson might not have been a great signing. He might prove us wrong. I'm not seeing evidence yet. And it was an interesting tactic from Chris Davis to go so overtly defensive. I mean, we're not in the Aitor Karanka league of overtly defensive. 1-0 up at Wickham with 20 minutes go, let's bang 9 centre-backs on, that kind of thing. But still, he was closing it down. What it meant in the second half, to my eyes anyway, is you put Stansfield up front, and 10 players basically in the first third, 40% of the field. The predictable happened. And how many times did we get, say, a goal kick or something like that, or a clearance from Beadle, just ended up in the hands of Everson at the other end, and we're back out? Taking slightly more care of the football might have made it a tiny bit less stressful, but also Stansfield isn't Djukovic. He isn't a Troy D. He isn't a Horsfield. He isn't a Harford. He isn't the kind of player you take the ball up to and he holds it up waiting for others to come in. He can do it, but he's up against very physical players, and I mean they doubled up on him when they needed to. The ball just kept coming back. Now Preston finally made substitutions that kind of took advantage of that. They made them quite late, but there was that period, 60 to 75 minutes, where they were swarming forward, and it was a full-on rearguard action thing. And I mean the difference between I don't know, the difference between the game at Hull and the game at Preston is when Hull swept forward, when they were like 3-on-2 because we were down to 10 men and stuff like that, I did think eventually they'd score. I was watching Preston sweep forward and I just didn't see it. With the exception, I think there was the big long ball over and Dobbing just got on the end of it in our box out of nowhere. Should have done better, but Beadle had it. Beadle makes a couple of comfortable saves, but he was hardly diving all over and tipping them round the post, was he? And you go back to what Paul Heckingbottom said about his team and about how hard done by they are. They weren't shooting at our goal. They had tons of possession. They had their novelty comedy crosses that were just endless. But, I mean, there was just no... It's not even that there wasn't intent. I just think... I mean, at Hull, I think their attack wasn't great, which didn't help. I think in this case, part of the thing was I thought our defence was really, really good. really good. I thought it looked solid, and I thought it's going to take a real job for Preston to get a goal past us. They didn't get a goal past us. The substitutions that that came in, what was it, about the 70th minute or something, when Cashin comes on, and I don't think that's the kind of substitution that filled us with a lot of optimism. Dykes comes on for Doyle as well. I didn't think until the moment Cashin was too bad, actually. I thought he got a couple of headers out. And I think the idea of bringing him and Samstead into a game like that and trying to rebuild some confidence in them, a dangerous time to do it, sure, but also we needed defenders on the park the way Davis was setting this up. But to get that confidence, it's going to have to be rebuilt somehow, because at the moment, if either like Neumann or Clara gets injured or suspended, one of those is likely, who you're putting in? At the moment is Cashin or Robinson. And so we've got, as much as you go on the message boards, we make comments about them, we need them to be good Blues players. And at the moment, I'm picking Cashin over Robinson because at least he'll stay on the park. And so to see him getting a couple of headers out and showing, I don't believe he's become a terrible player. I just think he's been a bad player for us. I don't buy he's awful. Robinson, I think there's all sorts of question marks. Hopefully he proves us wrong. Cashin, I think we've got to work with. And him coming off during the last 20, 25 minutes, I sort of got it, but it turned into a bit of an Alamo with them coming to us. But we were just pushing the ball out. There's a zillion ways you could approach a football match, but I mean, the other option would have been to have another player willing to go into the other half of the field, some kind of outball or something that's not Stansfield, and try to nick the second goal. That was not, it just didn't look like a strategy that was in Davis's head. And frustrating, and if it hadn't paid off, he'd be having brickbats at him this morning. But I sort of get it. We needed a result. He needed a result, and it was one of those games where you get a result by any means possible, because we needed that. And so it wasn't fun to watch as we're bringing on Samstead for Stansfield, as we're bringing on Cashin, and it just wasn't. It was really tense. I mean, let's call it what it was. But I understood why he was solidifying basically a back 8, back 9, you might call it, and trying to get the result. And I think, I don't know if he was also conscious that Preston were just going to keep sweeping these crosses in, and it would just be one bit of bad luck. I mean, we had a corner in the first half, which we basically cleared away ourselves, that nearly went in. Also, I mean, the thing I've not talked about here, I mean, go back to Heckingbottom and his 3-0 comment. We were the ones who came closest to scoring again. The Iwata, it was an Iwata header, I think, hit the post from a corner, was a terrific shot. Damari Gray, when he comes on, came on for Kumas on 54, he teams up with Stansfield, fires away a shot. It's not a million miles wide of the post. Iwata has another go. Stansfield has another go. I thought we were more likely to get a second goal than Preston were to get one, unless something happened, like once the game got into added on time. So something happens when the ball when the game goes into added on time. Damari Gray was the cause of this. Take no pleasure in that. I think Gray's been, again, terrific for us. But Damari Gray basically gets himself into trouble. That is the cause of how we ended up in a situation where we're trying to get rid of the ball. Gray doesn't get rid of the ball. He's heading into the box. Cashin side by side with the Preston defender. The Preston fans who've got this far, again, it's a Blues video. It's not for you, really. But I will... There's not a Blues fan that didn't think that was a defence. In fact, no, I found one Blues fan who thinks it wasn't a penalty, who thinks it was a 50-50. They leaned... It was a penalty. It was a penalty. Paul Heckingbottom, I have absolute sympathy for. It was absolutely a stonewall penalty. Had that been given, not only would Chris Davis be being dragged all over the message boards, Cashin would as well. And I still think, like, he might be having some thoughts on the coach ride home. But it wasn't given by a not great referee. Now, there's conversation about, oh, this stuff evens itself out. Does it, Eck? It doesn't even itself out. It's entirely luck of the draw. I do believe if you're a bigger team with a loud crowd on your back and stuff like that, you tend to get more decisions. But even then, the evening itself out, it just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Some teams get more decisions than others. Let's face it, we got lucky. We got lucky. The point was made that if there was, and I'm using this interview a lot because I don't usually talk about opposition managers, but one of the interviews made me laugh, and the other one a degree of sympathy. But he's coming out with like, if there was VAR in the game, we would have won that. I'm not sure you would. I mean, I wouldn't have any confidence any of your players could put a penalty in the way they were playing last night, to be fair. And I think Preston, outside of the penalty incident, and let's face it, 70% chance they score it. Outside of the penalty incident, they could be playing till Christmas. They weren't going to score last night. It was one of those games. I've seen so many games like that this season with Blues where we could have played on Port Vale. We could have played Port Vale forever. And unless Port Vale got bored, went off to get a can of Coke or something and left the goal open, we weren't going to get a goal there. Even then, we'd have hit the post the way we were playing that night. So it should have been a penalty. It wasn't a penalty. That was the closest Preston got to scoring all night. And I think if you're the home team in the Championship and you're bemoaning, rightly, bemoaning a penalty in the 93rd minute that wasn't given as your only chance to get something out of the game, I don't know. I think your questions are, it shouldn't just be limited to we're the most picked on team in the league. I don't buy it. I think it was an injustice. I think it was really unfair. I think it would have been an injustice if Preston had won the game because I just don't think they had the attacking wherewithal to do it. I couldn't have argued too much with the draw, but when it mattered, we did what we've not been doing. We found a way to get a result. We found it in spite of the fact that one of our players had to pull out in the warm-up. We found it in spite of the fact that we weren't playing with Jack Robinson, and what a crater he left at the heart of the defence. And then we found it because maybe this player we signed in January, who we couldn't play in the team in a competitive match till August, might just have been part of the answer to our problems all along. Who knows? Stranger things. Bottom line, we are 3 points off the playoffs, and I might go to a home game and not have my car nicked. That is a far better position than we were sat in 24 hours ago. Next, it's away to Bristol City. Can we have a game where we just don't end up talking about the referee? That'd be nice.